announcements, otherwise known as opportunities to serve and be involved in our community. So today is the final day for our outreach project with the Wake County Guardian at LITEM. I don't know why that's so hard to say, Guardian at LITEM program. Currently, they're focused on our back to school and providing necessary things for students to be successful going back to school. And of course, given the situation this year, the need has been even greater. So there are a few ways that you can help with this program. You can consider making an online PayPal donation on our website. You can make a check payable to TCSL and mail it here to our mailing address, or you can donate a computer, iPad, or a graphing calculator by contacting Susan Krupa. Have you found yourself missing our community, the in-person community? Of course. Yes, yes. Well, we're trying to give opportunities to connect. And so please join us directly following the service for the Let's Stay Connected gathering. This is an opportunity to just kind of connect with one another and to kind of see what's going on in our lives and to support one another through whatever may be happening and just to kind of see each other's faces, which is always good. So if you're participating via Zoom, stay where you are, don't move. But if you're participating in the service via Facebook Live, close it down there and jump on into our Zoom room. That's where you'll see all the lovely faces. So that's right after the service. So as always, not only is important of the spiritual things that we learn on Sunday, but our classes and our spiritual education program give us an opportunity to kind of go a little bit deeper. So we have one opportunity to do that with our Foundations class, which is our 10-week kind of Intro to Science of Mind class. So it talks a lot about the 10 core concepts and what we believe, and to really kind of get a little bit deeper in the principles of religious science and science of mind in our philosophy. This is a class that runs 10 consecutive weeks, and this starts October the 6th from 6:45 to 9:30, and also includes a prayer workshop, which will be on Friday evening, November the 6th, and a Saturday afternoon, November the 7th. So the date for us starting the Foundations has been pushed back a couple of weeks to give you opportunity to participate. And this is really one of those game-changing events. Just allows you to kind of be with folks, be in spiritual practice with folks, and really learn what it is that this community represents. And this class is facilitated by the Right Reverend Dusty Ripplemeyer, and the cost is $245. And as always, there are payment plans available, and if any challenges in that area, don't not sign up because of that, because we can make something happen, okay? Well, I believe that's it. And speaking of the Right Reverend Dusty Ripplemeyer, never mind. Even better, the vibrant, the vivacious Carol Cross.
Hello, everyone, and glad to see all of y'all through that magic of Zoom and Facebook Live. So, our theme for 2020 is 2020 Spiritual Vision. Our September theme is Facing the Fear, and Reverend Dusty's talk title today is Just Do It. Now I am going to read this community's purpose statement, which is located on, whoops, no it's not. Well, it is. It's on the back of our programs, but the programs are here and you're there, so it doesn't do you any good. However, this is our reason for being here. Our purpose is to inspire, educate, and empower individuals to experience themselves as unique and individualized expressions of God, the love intelligence that governs the universe. We are committed to not merely a theoretical understanding of our oneness and unity with God, but to consciously practice this truth in our everyday lives. Through celebration, service, study, and fellowship, we are committed to the transformation of our personal lives and to being a powerful and beneficial presence on the planet. With the energy of unconditional love, simply, we are here for God. And now I'm so excited to say something that I haven't said in 6 months, which is I'm now going to read our flower dedication. And the flowers today are dedicated by the TCSL Leadership Council to Reverend Dusty. And they say, Since it's your birthday weekend, on behalf of our entire community, we want to express our appreciation for your exemplary leadership during these tough COVID-19 times. Back in March, when the pandemic really struck, you worked with our AV and technical volunteers to convert all our programming into online formats almost overnight. You protected our financial stability by cutting expenses to the bone, securing a PPE loan, and negotiating some concessions from our landlord. Your smiling face and comforting presence have appeared in every single Wednesday night service for the past 6 months and in every except one of the Sunday services. You kept our spirits up by serving as DJ for our virtual dance parties and as bingo caller for our online game night. You kept our relationship strong through Lunch Bunch via Zoom and now the Let's Stay Connected sessions after the service. You've maintained a full teaching load and have mentored the staff, the practitioners, and the other ministers. And you've continued to check in, counsel, pray with, and console anyone who needed individual attention. You've always given 100% to our community. But during these challenges presented by the coronavirus, you've gone beyond all expectations. We can't thank you enough for everything you do for us, but especially for being a steady rudder guiding us through these turbulent months. All we can say is, to quote a wise woman, we love you madly. So now we really got to get ourselves centered and back into our spiritual, centered, meditative mode. So I invite you to close your outer eyes and to turn within and allowing these healing sounds of the crystal bowls to wash over you.
I invite you to begin to bring your attention back into your bodies and into your rooms and to stay turned within as I speak a word of invocation upon our service, truly recognizing the one spirit, the one life, the one mind, the one heart, the one creative energy back of everything that there is. I call this power and presence God, but it goes by many different names. First cause, source energy, the universe, peace, love. But by whatever name we give it, it is the very essence of unconditional love, of peace, of joy, of creativity, of freedom, and of grace. I know that I am one with this power and presence. It is that which created me out of itself in a moment of unconditional love. It is that energy within me that sustains me, that fuels me, that guides me, that guards me. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is the truth of everyone that is in this sanctuary this morning, everyone that is on Facebook Live, everyone that is on Zoom, every sentient being on the planet. We are all divine emanations of the divine, ambassadors of its presence on the planet. And it is from that place of unity that I bless our time together, truly knowing that it is a divine appointment that God is having through and as each of us individually and collectively, and that it flows with grace and ease from beginning to end. I bless all of the volunteers here in the sanctuary, from Mark and Heather in the AV booth to Carol and Ruth as the practitioners supporting this service, to the Lola Youngman Trio as our musical inspiration, to Terry Waldrop, who just dropped by this morning, and to our amazing, beautiful, wonderful, loving, warm, funny, energetic community. I bless each and every single person, those that are here watching today, those who couldn't be here today, those that have passed through and gone on to some other community or some other place. Truly, this is a good God day, and we allow it to unfold as such simply by saying, "And so it is." And so it is. Amen. It is now my pleasure to welcome back to the podium licensed spiritual practitioner and ministerial student, the awesome Ruth Pulley.
And I'd like to invite Carol to come help me. She was slacking on her duties this morning. So if you've been in our community for any length of time, you have seen this ceremony and how we honor the threads of truth that are in all spiritual paths. And this is important in each and every day, and more important in our time now. Christianity is the path of Christ consciousness, love, and forgiveness. Buddhism is the path of compassion and understanding. Judaism is the ethical path of living by sacred law. Baha'i is the path of unity and peace. Islam is the path of submission to the will of God, the highest calling. Confucianism is the path of deliberate tradition. Taoism is the natural way, the path of ultimate reality. Native American practice and shamanic traditions are the paths of primal spirituality. Shintoism is the path of tribal ancestry. Hinduism is the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. And science of mind and spirit is the path of that divine principle of love and law. And the heart represents the one heart, the one love, that one powerful presence that resides at the center of all beings everywhere, with absolutely no exceptions. May peace, love, joy, and unity prevail on earth through the followers of all paths. And so it is. Thank you, Carol. So the reading for today is from Ernest Holmes, if you've ever heard of that guy. He says, "We should be careful not to divide our mental house against itself. Having announced the law of liberty, we must not deny it. We shall all know the truth, then ways and means and methods will be found for the freedom of all. The mold of acceptance is the measure of our experience. The infinite fills all molds and forever flows in new and greater ones. Within us is the unborn possibility of limitless experience. Ours is the privilege of giving birth to it. And so it is." All right, let's take one moment to breathe in those words, breathe in that understanding. There is one power and presence, one source of limitless possibilities. And knowing that we are connected to this source, knowing that it is who and what we are. And from that declaration, from that knowing, from that power, from that indwelling of this presence, I speak a word of blessing on Dusty, on the Lola Youngman Trio, as they are divine expressions of this power and presence, divine emanations. The manifestation of the divine discovering itself through music and through the spoken word. And we are grateful for this awareness, and so it is. And the Lola Youngman Trio.
Hey, I want to just add to what Carol said about when you're facing your fears. I think it works best to just picture the outcome that you would like and just be passionate about picturing that and just relax and let go. And it makes everything go much better. So we're going to do a song about that called When I Dream. Life can be what I make it to be. Everything real comes naturally. Magic is with me in a place I can't see when I dream. When I dream. Dream of the mountains that one day I'll climb. Travel the oceans inside my mind. Everything's possible, everything's fine when I dream, when I dream. Every time I go inside and ask the questions in my mind, relax and breathe and enjoy the ride. Mystery adventure is waiting for me. I'll let myself float on the wings of desire, turning that feeling of passion to fire. Letting go is all that's required when I dream, when I dream. Anytime I go inside and ask the questions in my mind, relax and breathe and enjoy the ride. Mystery adventure is waiting for me. I'll let myself float on the wings of desire, turning that feeling of passion to fire. Letting go is all that's required when I dream, when I dream. La la la, la la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la la, la 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 la. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Lola and Dave and Paul. First time we've ever had a trio. It was quite lovely. I would just like to take just a moment to thank the Leadership Council for the flower dedication and Carol for her beautiful words. I have celebrated 11 birthdays within this community, and I can't think of a more wonderful group of people to celebrate. As long as you got to be getting older, you might as well be celebrating with some really wonderful people, and I have had the privilege and the pleasure of being able to do that. So I just thank you all so very much from the bottom of my heart for being there. Welcome to those of you who may have just jumped onto Facebook Live or on Zoom. We're so grateful that you've chosen to share your morning with us. The theme for the month of September is Facing the Fear, and my talk title today is Just Do It. Now, as I was preparing over this last week, two really distinct themes came to me. And while at first blush they might seem like they have absolutely nothing to do with each other, the truth is that both of them speak to this idea of facing our fears. Both of them speak to the idea of our need for faith. Both of them speak to the idea that we need to take action, and both of us invite us to just do it. One of them speaks from a broader, more general viewpoint, and the other one speaks from a more specific stand, but both of them speak about the importance of spiritual principle and of spiritual practice. Now, the very first idea that came to me was from the Bible, and it was the story of David and Goliath. So picture this, right? The Philistine army had gathered for war against Israel. And the two armies are in this standoff, facing each other on two opposing sides of a very steep valley. A Philistine giant measuring over 9 feet tall, I can't imagine it, and wearing full body armor had been coming out each day for 40 days, mocking and challenging the Israelites to fight him in a battle. His name was Goliath. His appearance and challenge really struck terror in the hearts of the Israel soldiers. Saul, the king of Israel, and all of the entire army were really all very reluctant to take up this challenge. Enter, one day, David. He was the youngest son of Jesse. He was a shepherd. And he was asked by his father to visit the front lines to check up on and to then report back about his brothers. Now, David was just a really young teenager at the time. While there, David heard Goliath shouting his daily defiance, and he saw the great fear that arose in the hearts of the men of Israel. When David saw their fear, he was both amazed and horrified at the same time. So David volunteered to fight Goliath. He said, choose me, I'll do it. The other soldiers thought that it was ridiculous that this scrawny little kid could even think about fighting a giant, but, they weren't really up to doing it. So they took David to visit Saul so that they could get his permission. Now, it took some persuading on David's part, but King Saul finally agreed to let him oppose the giant. David did this by telling Saul about his job as a shepherd, and that there was very often times in which he would have to fight lions or bears in order to protect the sheep. Now, Saul attempted to outfit David with his own armor. However, David refused to wear it, saying that it was burdensome to him, that it was cumbersome, and that it felt unfamiliar. So, dressed in his simple shepherd tunic, carrying his shepherd's staff, a sling, and a pouch full of stones that he had gathered along the way, David approached Goliath. The giant cursed at him. He hurled threats and insults at him. David was deeply offended by the giant's mocking challenges, but the sarcasm and the threats did not scare him. Armed with the inferior weapons of a shepherd, but empowered by God, David intended to kill the mighty Goliath, and he basically just told him of that intention, which in all probability made Goliath laugh. Now, as the giant moved toward him, David reached into his bag and slung one of the stones at Goliath's head. It happened to find a hole within his armor and sank deep into the giant's forehead. He fell face down on the ground. David then took up his sword, killed him, and cut off his head. With their hero down, the Philistines scattered in fear. Ah, the trauma and the drama of the Old Testament. You gotta love it. Now, this is a story that each of us has probably heard time and time again. Today, however, we are looking at the story metaphysically and in light of the theme of the month, Facing the Fear, and my talk title, Just Do It. The essence of a metaphysical approach to the Bible is that the stories become the personal stories of each of us. The characters become the ideas and the attitudes that live within our consciousness. The unfolding drama depicts the challenges and the struggles that we often experience as we walk our spiritual path. In the story of David and Goliath, the Israelite soldiers represent our ideas and our beliefs that are in alignment with the spiritual truth, while the Philistines represent our individual ideas and those race consciousness ideas that are not in alignment. Goliath specifically represents fear. He represents misperception, worry, doubt, resistance, error thoughts, and the false beliefs that we have, within all of the arenas of our lives. He represents the thoughts of fear that come up for us even before we've had a chance to get out of bed in the morning. This is why Goliath came to the battlefield first. He arrived there first, and he begins to claim his ground with a whole lot of boasting and strutting about, with a whole lot of demands and posturing. The 40 days that they talk about, the 40 means completion, or as long as it takes. David represents love, faith, and our awareness of the power and the dominion of love. He knows that people who depend upon the external resources of the material world often give up in despair. He recognizes that the most important power that there is the power of love, that it is the only force that can meet and can subdue the fears that are within us. He even refuses to put on the trappings of the material world represented by the armor that Saul tries to get him to wear, instead choosing to stand in the power of his own natural gifts and talents and to trust in and have faith in his own internal wisdom rather than the thoughts and the ideas of others. Everything unfolds better for us when we stand in our own power, when we stand in our own uniqueness, when we stand in our own authenticity. We are encouraged through this story to let loose the habit that we have of looking outside of ourselves and instead to lean into the power of God, the power of love that is within us, which is all sufficient. We need nothing else. When the giant criticized, insulted, and threatened David, David didn't stop. He didn't run away. He didn't waver in the least little bit. He didn't cower in fear, but actually ran into the battle. This says that David understands that we must be on the offensive and not on the defensive, that we must take action, that action is vital to faith. That it's so very easy to have faith if we're tucked up in a little room away from everything and everyone. But true faith really requires activity in the world. The law of circulation requires inward and outwardly directed activity in the world. So David faced his fear and did what he knew he needed to do, absolutely knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, that he would be supported in all that he did. In that moment, only his faith mattered to him. He just did it. The question to ask ourselves is, where does my faith lie? Does it lie with the Philistines, or does it lie with the Israelites? Does it lie with fear, or does it lie with love? Remember last week when Jim encouraged us to get a different perspective on our lives and our challenges, to get a view that is larger and broader. In this story, David's faith encourages him to look at Goliath from a different perspective. He looks at Goliath and his battle with him not as a giant problem or as an impossible situation, but from God's point of view. He reframes the battle in two different ways. He first reframes it as spiritual and mental rather than physical. Remember that we live our lives from the inside out. Secondly, he reframed it as impersonal rather than personal. He absolutely refused to measure himself against Goliath as all of the other people in the story were doing. Instead, he measured Goliath against God, knowing that the power of fear could never measure up to the power of the divine's infinite power. The bottom line from that perspective is that there is nothing too big for God. Nothing that has more power than the power of the divine. Nothing that is impossible if we are not in alignment, if we are in alignment with that power and presence. If we are experiencing a giant problem or what we are looking at as an impossible situation, the invitation is to do the work to see the problem or the situation from a higher viewpoint, to see the issue from God's perspective, from love's perspective. What would God do here? What would love do here? As David heads into battle, he stops by a brook, and he picks out 5 smooth stones. Now, the brook represents our spiritual path, and the 5 smooth stones represent our senses that have been divested of their material roughness. The 5 spiritual senses are expressions of inner spiritual ideas. Ideas that really have tremendous power when they're used by someone that really understands their spiritual qualities. They see, these ideas see beyond the world of form. They see past the veil to the spiritual truth of the thing. When we go forward in faith, we go forward supported by God, by a universe that is always for us and never against us. When we go forward in faith, we get the right idea, that smooth stone. That right idea or that smooth stone is downloaded to us. And it's that idea that will allow us to be victorious. This idea isn't something that we put into our heads. It's not something that we dream up with our intellect or try to figure out through our human effort. No, rather, it is a spiritual idea that is revealed to us when we get quiet and still enough to listen to our inner wisdom, to that inner intuition within us. Unity Ministries says, so metaphysically, the importance of what happens is not that a brave little kid goes up against a mammoth big guy and wins. The important thing is that David does not see a big, scary dude. He sees an illusion that is not of God, and so has no reality and truth, and so is not to be feared. We see this in the fact that while the adults try to cover the kid in armor to protect him and provide weapons with which to do battle, David shrugs them off. This fear-based accoutrements of old consciousness will simply get in the way once we allow the tiny voice of spiritual truth to stand forth. All David needed was a stone, the word, the seed of spiritual truth, and a sling, a willingness to send that seed forward. Now, the second thing that came up for me comes wrapped in another Bible idea, and that Bible idea is prove me now. Once again, it's talking about facing our fear. Once again, it's talking about faith. Once again, it's talking about taking action. And once again, it's inviting us to just do it. The giant in the story is our underlying fear in lack and limitation. A belief reinforced as we look out at a world currently in the midst of a collective experience of a pandemic that is affecting our health, our economics, and our very lives. The Bible verse is from Malachi. It says, "Bring ye the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my home, and provide me now herewith, saith the Lord, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing so great that you won't have room enough to take it in." Some form of tithing was practiced throughout the entire ancient world. The word tithe meant tenth, and the people of that ancient time felt that 10 was a magical number of increase. In Malachi 1, it says, "Prove me now." It is a call to action, and that action is to tithe. And the verse promises that if we do, heaven will pour out a blessing so great that we will not have room to take it all in. Edwene Gaines, in her book, The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, clearly states this spiritual law when she says, "You must tithe 10% of all you receive to the person, place, or institution where you have received your spiritual food." 10% of everything that we receive. This includes all of the money that we receive, all financial income, salary, bonuses, interest earned, monetary gifts, dividends, proceeds from the sale of a house, and money that we win, inherit, or find on the street. To the person, place, or institution where we have received our spiritual food. Spiritual food is that which inspires us, that which teaches us, that which reminds us who we really are, causes us to remember the spiritual truth, the awareness of our innate divinity. It can be a person or a place or an institution, and it's more than okay to split your tithe into more than one person's places or institutions. The promise is that if we tithe, we will prove God in our lives, and the windows of heaven will open to us. Now, I know what this can bring up in us. Like the Israelites, it can bring up fear. It can bring up worry and doubt and resistance. I've been there. While I am a tither now, I haven't always been. And I remember that feeling that it brought up in me. But Edwene Gaines is really quite clear, actually pretty adamant about it. She says that we can't just talk about it. We can't just read about it. We have to do it in spite of our fears. She would say that we need to tithe even when the bills can't be paid, and tell stories about her own life in which she continued to tithe even when she wasn't sure where the next meal for herself and her daughter was going to be coming from. Now, I don't know Edwene Gaines very well. I've only met her one time in my life. However, knowing the little that I do know about her, I would say that she would absolutely say, just do it. Just do it. What will happen after we've been tithing for a while is that the supply will begin to come to us from all sorts of strange places. Places that we never would have expected or even believed. I was watching an old episode of the Kelly Clarkson show, and she had on it a woman who had done some really wonderful things at the beginning of this COVID experience in her community. And she invited her on to the show, and then proceeded to like shower her with like all kinds of amazing gifts. And then somebody else came onto the show and did the same thing. And by the time she had left, she had a home for she and her kids who were on the verge of homelessness. And yet, right? So she tithed her time and her talents, and she maybe didn't have the resources financially to do so, but she took care of her community, and then the universe took care of her in some really amazing and wonderful ways that she could never have ever even dreamt up. And the income will just keep increasing. An energy of excitement will actually seep in as we eagerly anticipate more money coming in so that we can send some more out. When a person commits to tithing, something inside of them works differently from that moment on. Conditions may or may not immediately improve on the physical level, but on the spiritual, mental, and emotional level, that level within us, they will absolutely be different. It works wonders. The truth is that faith expands whenever we give. That the more we give, the more faith we have, and the more that we realize we cannot outgive God, as Emerson once said. Once we've been tithing for a few months, we have to be prepared to receive the good that is going to flow in our lives, it's on its way. Dare to claim that good without reservation. It is our birthright. Each and every single one of us is worthy of all of the good that we can accept in our lives. Remember that faith is a choice. We can choose whether to have faith or not. We can choose whether to believe that the law of tithing is true or not. And we can choose to know that God is our source, not anything outside of ourselves, but that God is our source. If we look back at the Bible, specifically the New Testament, we see that Jesus never really talked about tithing per se, but what he did talk about and what he did teach about was giving. Specifically, he said, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over. For with the same measure that ye mete it shall be measured to you again." In giving, we're not giving anything away. We are giving way to the flow of God within our lives, to the flow of good in our lives. We're powerfully entering into the law of circulation, into the law of giving and receiving. True giving isn't something that we do to or for someone, but our consent to let the flow of God flow through us. There's an old saying that says, when things get tight, something's got to give. And that something is each and every single one of us. When we hoard our time, our talent, and our treasure, we are saying no to the flow of life through us. When we give, we are saying yes to life. While the emphasis of tithing in the strictest sense is on how much we give and whom we are giving to, the emphasis and the important thing about giving in general is, where are we giving from? Are we giving from a consciousness of lack and limitation, or are we giving from a consciousness that knows that the universe is abundant and that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom of heaven? If we give to get something back, and we don't get that thing back, then we are going to feel depleted. If we give out of a sense of duty, we are going to feel depleted. But if we give from the fullness of our hearts, from a cup that runneth over with love and gratitude, then we will receive the blessings that giving has to offer. We will be blessed. Eric Butterworth, in his book, In the Flow of Life, says, "We are forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. Thus, it is never for lack of life, substance, intelligence, or love that we experience difficulties, but because we are out of the flow of life. And one of the most effective ways of getting back into the flow is through giving. We may have been thinking lack, thinking get, or the need to get. Now we must think give. What I encourage each of us to really know is that having an experience of prosperity or abundance is not about our outer circumstances. It's not about how much money that we have in our checking account or in our satchels, but that the experience of prosperity and abundance is determined by our inner state. We speak about this idea all the time, as within, so without. We create our outer lives. We create the world of form from our inner state. When we give from an inner state that is steeped in God consciousness, aligned with the flow of life, then giving and receiving are one and the same. The blessing and the blessed are one. Prove Me Now is a demonstration of the way that it works, the creative power of God on the macro level and the creative power of each one of us on the micro level. It is a call to action, a call to demonstrate the law of cause and effect, or the law of attraction, or the law of giving and receiving. Whatever it is that you want to call it, it is a demonstration of our faith. So today, whether we are locked into a battle with a giant that represents our own inner fears, or the fear of lack and limitation of a collective consciousness, the invitation is to face our fears, to see the situation from a broader, more spiritual perspective, and to be willing to stand firmly grounded in our divine connection and in the power, the innate power of our own gifts and talents. The invitation is to just do it. Whatever that action is, just do it. And to simply let God prove just how faith works in our lives, individually and collectively. And so it is. So it is. So I just invite us to turn within, to return to that sacred space and place within us, that spark of the divine, that center of creative energy within us, to allow it and our awareness of its presence to just fill every cell of our body and to bask in its deliciousness. I know that I am one with this presence, that there is nothing that can separate me from it. It is closer than my very breath. And just as I know this to be true for me, I know that it is absolutely true for each and every single one of us on the planet, all sentient beings. Every one of us individually and collectively as the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. We are all divine emanations of the divine. And it is from that place of unity that I speak these words about and for each of us this morning, truly knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation. That we arrived on the planet with everything that we need within us to live a magnificent life. A life filled with all of the good that we could accept, that we can accept. I know that there is a way of living our lives from this center of our being that allows us to face our fears, knowing that as human beings, they show up every once in a while, rear their heads, that we are able to face them, to meet them, and to subdue them by the power of the presence of God within us, by the power of love that it is at our very core. I know that there is a way of living our lives from an abundance of peace, an abundance of joy, an abundance of wisdom, an abundance of love. That there is nothing too big for God. That there is no giant problem that can't be solved when we are in alignment with that presence within us. That there is no impossible situation that can't be met by listening for and to our own inner wisdom. And so I claim ease and grace for each of us around living that life, around recognizing who and what we are at our very core and leaning into that in every situation, in every circumstance. Allowing the flow of good, the flow of God, the flow of love to flow through us unimpeded. I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes. That it works with mechanical regularity to clothe my words in form even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and I release them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. Knowing that it is so, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Speaking of giving, it is now time for our conscious giving. It's that time every Sunday that we take a moment to be grateful for the abundance that we truly have. That we take a moment to be willing to share or to give of some of that abundance. That we take a moment to really know how this idea of tithing or giving works. And to know that our gifts, however big or small, allow this community to continue to be a beacon of light and warmth and love in the Greater Triangle area. That these gifts prosper the one giving, and that they add to the attitude and the energy of sufficiency on the planet. So please repeat after me. I am grateful for all that I receive. And I am grateful for all that I may give. And so it is. Please welcome back to the stage the awesome Lola Youngman Trio.
Thank you. I know a place where dreams are born and time is never planned. It's not on any chart. You must find it with your heart. Never, never land. It might be miles beyond the moon or right there where you stand. Just keep an open mind, and then suddenly you'll find never, never land. You'll have a treasure if you stay there, more precious far than gold. For once you have found your way there, you can never, never grow old. So come with me where dreams are born and time is never planned. Just think of lovely things, and your heart will fly on wings forever. You never, never You'll have a treasure if you stay there, more precious far than gold. For once you have found your way there, you can never, never grow old. So that's my home where dreams are born, and time is never planned. Just think of lovely things, and your heart will fly on wings forever. You never, never land. Thank you.
Thank you, Lola. Beautiful. Well, as always, if you would like to experience the power of affirmative prayer and applying it into situations in your life, whether it's situations that bring you joy or situations that may be challenging in this moment, we are always here and willing to support you in any way possible. You can do that through our website or also contacting us directly, the practitioners directly here. So now is a time for our September affirmations. And affirmations, it's a little bit more than just the final thing we do before our service is over. But the point of affirmation is to really train the mind to focus on that which is true and to bring the mind into alignment with the truth of who and what we are. So that's the point of these affirmations. So let's say it with meaning and say it with that intention. Everybody ready? Now this is a call and response, so repeat after me. I live in the faith that there is a power and presence greater than I am.
I live in the faith that there is a power and presence greater than I am.
I know that it nurtures and supports me in ways I cannot even imagine.
I know that it nurtures and supports me in ways that I can't even imagine.
I affirm that it does so from a place deep within my heart.
I affirm that it does so from a place deep within my heart.
I have faith that it informs me of my highest and best.
I have faith that it informs me of my highest and best.
I see beyond the world of appearance through its wisdom.
I see beyond the world of appearance through its wisdom.
From my place of faith, I act in ways that affirm the inherent goodness of all.
From my place of faith, I act in ways that affirm the inherent goodness of all.
I surrender into the grace of the One, knowing I am divinely guided in all I do.
I surrender into the grace of the One, knowing I am divinely guided in all I do.
And I take this first step even when I can't see the staircase, and all is well.
I take that first step even when I cannot see the entire staircase, and all is well.
And so it is. All right, with that energy of those affirmations, let's turn within one moment as I speak a word as we go forth, knowing that there is a power and presence, knowing that this power and presence is not far off from us. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to do anything but simply rest in it. And knowing through our awareness and through our connection with this power and presence, through the very action as it flows through our cells and our bodies and our minds, that our lives are transformed, and that all we have to do is do it. And so it is. And don't go.